Hey, what is up? Long time no talk. This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Oakridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. I'm Norm, along with Mike. It is Sunday, December 6th, 2020. We are pushing towards the end of this miserable year with reckless abandon. Mr. A, it's been, 2 weeks since we last got together? How are you?
Good morning, Norm. Anxiously waiting the calendar to flip to 2021, and hopefully that means better things ahead for everybody.
Yeah, Mike, most of us would like to see this year put to bed, but we're going to end 2020 with something that's very familiar to hockey fans, and that is the World Junior Hockey Championships taking place in Edmonton and Alberta, giving us a sense of comfort to end a really uncomfortable year. And when it comes to the Leafs contingent, not a bad representation at all. 7 players with ties to the organization, so that'll be exciting.
Let's just say that the preliminary rosters have been selected, so it's not a guarantee that all 7 make it, and there's a possibility that the Leafs hold back Nick Robertson but that seems less likely now because of the situation with the regular season starting in mid-January. They probably will let him go to the tournament as opposed to the Rangers not letting Alexis Lafreniere go or New Jersey letting Jack Hughes go. But I think it's a statement on, what the quality of the scouting job that Kyle Dubas and his scouting staff have done, that their 3 top picks from the 2019 draft and the 4 top picks from the 2020 draft have all been selected by their respective countries. You look at the 3 Russians, and there's something with the Russians and names that start with the letter A, because it's the triple A club of Mikhail Abramov, Rodion Amirov, and Artur Akhtiamov, who were selected by the Russians. And Akhtiamov is the backup to Yaroslav Askarov, and probably won't get a lot of playing time. But 3 picks for that team, a 1 pick for Team USA, Robertson, who he scored 5 points in the World Junior last year, and probably will be a top line winger for the Americans. And then the 3 Finns of Hervonen, Niemela, and Kokkonen, who made the Finn team last year. It's no guarantee that all these players are going to be successful. If you remember back in the day, I think Carlo Koliakovo, I had a conversation with him the year that he played in the World Junior. I think there was like 3 or 4 Leaf prospects on Team Canada, and Koliakovo had a decent career, but the other ones I don't think ended up having much of a career. So it's not a guarantee that there's going to be success there, but it is, I think, a statement on right now these players are considered at the top of their prospect level for the respective countries.
What I like is that there's really no pressure on them to perform with the Leafs anytime soon. Just go be themselves, do well within the setting that they're in at any given moment, and work their way up the ladder. In the meantime, the Maple Leafs will continue on and try to get something done with a nice slew of guys who have been tested over the last few years in the Marners, the Matthews, the Nylanders, and all of these veterans who've come on board the good ship Maple Leaf to try to make something happen for this organization for the first time in over half a century. Mike, the Canadian division is the idea of it, the concept is starting to grow on me more and more each day. It's out of necessity. This is the way it's going to be in the new COVID environment, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan, but it just seems the realities of the border not opening probably until at earliest March or April just makes it a reality. And interdivision for 52 or 56 games. The only thing I had a real problem with is the fact that I think you're limiting Canadian teams to 4 entries in the playoffs, where, like I said, if we kept the divisions the way they were, I think 6 of the 7 teams in Canada are playoff caliber. But that being said, that it's just the reality that the border is not going to be able to be crossed, and these teams are going to have to play north of the border for the entire season. So the interesting thing is, and I've yet to make my predictions, but Pierre LeBrun wrote a really good piece in The Athletic a couple weeks ago, and Luke Fox from Sportsnet did a similar thing in terms of he did a power ranking, and LeBrun talked to 15 GMs, scouts, coaches in the Western Conference who didn't have vested interest regarding, who would finish first and who would finish, 2 through 7.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that was consistent of the 15 that LeBron spoke to was that Ottawa would be last. And, they're a young and upcoming club.
Sure.
They've got a lot of young talent, but they're not close to being, ready to make the playoffs. But I think it was 9 of the 15 experts picked Toronto to finish in first. And I'm a little hesitant to go there because, as you know, Norm, Canadian teams, West Coast,
Mm-hmm.
East Coast, Montreal, they always work themselves up into a lather to play the Leafs, and they usually play above their pay grade against the Leafs. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little hesitant to say, oh, yeah, they're definitely finishing in first.
When you look back over the last 5, 6, 7 years and go to the moment where, the keys had been handed over to the new regime, the Brendan Shanahans, Lou Lamoriello, Babcock. The idea was then that at some point in the future, this team would be among the best, if not the best, in the entire NHL. 7 years later, the Leafs have had, multiple 3-digit point seasons. Rookies of the year, a lot of top players in the league. They've done a lot since then, but they haven't really accomplished the real goal, and that's succeed in the playoffs. However, at this point in the team's development and evolution, you would expect the team to be among the best of the Canadian squads with all of these players and everything that they've been through, even though they haven't won much playoff-wise. You'd expect them to be, among the best, if not the best, not just when ranked against Canadian teams, but all teams in the league, Mike.
Yeah, it's one thing to be projected, to be predicted to be the top team in Canada or, the top team in the Atlantic Division if it was any other year. It's another thing to reach those expectations. Yeah. And I think that's, what has been consistent about the Maple Leafs and this is not just, over the Brendan Shanahan era, but I think probably for most of the last 30 years has been their inconsistency. They'll have, streaks where they look like the best team in the league, and then all of a sudden there's a month or 6 weeks or 2 months where they look incompetent. And that's, that is the aim of what Kyle Dubas addressed in free agency, and by bringing in Zach Bogosian and Joe Thornton and Wayne Simmons, players who are locker room guys, who are leaders, who can contribute to the depth of the organization. That's why they were brought in. I don't think anybody looking at the stats last year had a problem with the core group. I mean, Tavares got hurt, Marner got hurt, but they both had pretty decent years. Nylander had a career year. Matthews had a career year. It was the support structure. It was, the depth. It was at times the goaltending because of depth. It was the defense almost every night. So, they've addressed those areas, at least they think they have, and we'll see whether it comes to fruition that this team is better, but it's not a guarantee. And we won't be satisfied on how this team plays until May and June when the Stanley Cup playoffs begin.
Mike, demographically, we've seen an accelerated maturity with this team, but will we see that maturity from the influx of new veteran guys affect the core group?
Well, that's the hope. I mean, that's the hope, is that, a respected guy like Thornton, who is well known for being, ebullient in the locker room and, basically letting everybody else relax because he's, really good with the press, and Wayne Simmons, who defends his teammates on the ice. And, a guy like Bogosian, who is sort of a rough and tumble player. His problem has been mostly staying healthy, that those guys, along with a couple of the KHL additions, will elevate this team to a level that they haven't seen in the last few years. But in the end, it's going to be What does Matthews do? What does Tavares do? What does Marner do? And probably most importantly, how Freddie Anderson does.
The structure, at least for this season, American teams south of the border, Canadian teams north of the border, is going to be interesting. Do you think for fans and even players, they'll get to a point where it begins to feel like Groundhog Day, just playing the same old teams over and over again? Because, 50 years ago, an original six, that was great because that's all that was known. But coming from a league of 30 teams and having that condensed to just 7, I mean, are we going to get sick and tired of seeing the damn Vancouver Canucks over and over again?
Yeah, that's the fear. I mean, it's only 1 year, so that's the only caveat in that. But yeah, I mean, for one thing, it sounds like they're going to go with sort of a baseball-like schedule to limit the cost of travel. So and they're probably going to play their opposition, I think eight times, something like that. So if they do 8 times 6, that's 48. They probably play like Montreal and Ottawa an extra game or 2. So they could be playing the Canadians up to 10 times, up the Senators up to 10 times. And I mean, we're old enough, Norm, to remember the Adams division when they played Buffalo and Boston and yeah, 8 times. And after it got boring. Yeah. It really did get boring. And then you're going to play these teams 8 to 10 times, and then you're going to play them in a best of 7. It's really, I mean, that's why, like, I was hoping that the border situation would clear and they'd be able to go back. But, maybe Toronto can take advantage of the fact they're not going to play Boston and they're not going to play Tampa. So, maybe that will. But how about a potential matchup against Connor McDavid in the first round of the playoffs?
Oh, man, that's for sure. This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Oakridge Ford. Norm in London, Mike in Buffalo. Couple of comments and questions we'll get to in just a moment. If you guys are on Instagram, at Norm at Oakridge Ford, at Mike in Buffalo. I need some more followers on my IG page. I've always got a lot of nice delivery photos on the IG page. They're forwarded through to my Facebook page. I've added pictures of the 2021 F-150 to both of those social media avenues. And I want you to take a look. I'm also going to put them on community. The 2021 F-150 has arrived at Oakridge Ford. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to cause a huge stir in the truck market. As we know, the F-150 is the number one selling vehicle, not truck, vehicle in North America. And I don't think Ford is going to lose that title anytime soon, especially with these new models. They are on another level. Mike, you're going to have to come up to the dealership when the borders open so I can put you in a long-term finance on a very expensive truck with no money down, Mike, at a high interest rate. So let's do it.
I owned an F-150. I owned an F-150 back in the day because of where I lived. So yeah, I mean, I'll think about that.
That was when it was one of those podunk trucks, right? Just a good old truck that had a radio and no cruise control, and you're lucky if you had a brake pedal and a steering wheel. Trucks have come a long way, my friend. Michael. I'm just going to do a cut here. Connor Tate in community. Love your combos, guys. We're up in North Bay. Keep up the good work. Stay safe. Our game will be back soon. Are you sensing an optimism like that through your interactions on social media?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the last couple of days, I got the feeling, and it was funny. I spoke with Mike Morial, who works for NHL.com about the World Junior yesterday, but I spoke to him before we went to air about the season. And it's funny because I get the feeling over the last couple of days that they didn't want to start January 1, that they couldn't get things locked in place. And I think that both sides agreed that in the middle of January was more realistic. Apparently the players, didn't want to give up Christmas vacation with their families if they were going to have to potentially be in bubbles, which I still don't think is going to be the case. I think they're going to probably play like Major League Baseball, play in their own arenas, although there are a couple places like San Jose where they're not allowing, contact sports to play anywhere in Santa Clara County, so that's going to be a little bit of a hiccup. But I think that 52 to 56 games, the middle of January, training camp starting right after Christmas, 2 weeks, no exhibition games. They still have to straighten out the financial situations, but I think
amazing.
I think the players. I think the players realize that even though the CBA was done 4 months ago, the owners and even the players thought there were going to be fans in the stands by January, and it's probably not going to be until the vaccine gets moved around enough that there's some sort of immunity out there. So this is the reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, let's just get a season started. The Zamboni driver is not even going to show up, or the ice resurfacing person will not even bother attending the facility that day. The lights barely turn on. Someone grabs some pucks, some some auxiliary equipment for the goalies. Drop the damn thing and let's play. So maybe one of the players can officiate. Whatever it takes to get these guys on the ice and having some fun along the way. Do you think we'll ever get back? I mean, let me ask this. There is a sense that we'll never, as a society, return to normal, whatever normal was. Within the hockey context, do you foresee a time when hockey season, all 82 games of it, begins in early October and ends sometime in late June?
Yeah, well, in a perfect world, and obviously we thought things were going to return to normal a lot sooner than they have, but the whole plan for this year is to get the season done by early July, so that they can start the regular season next year in October as they normally do. So I mean, now obviously the motivation for ending it in early July is because NBC has the Olympics, and they don't want a sort of cross pollination of the NHL and their Olympic
How the hell are
coverage.
they
So
going to have an Olympic Games? Like, oh my
I
God.
don't know, but right now it's the Tokyo Summer Games are still on, so that's what they're planning for. If that doesn't come to fruition, then then things might change a little bit in terms of having more time. But that's the plan. But I think you're probably talking about a draft and free agency in early August, and then going to training camp in September and starting the year in October. I mean, the things that may change, and these are things that probably the fans don't care about, but somebody as a member of the media cares about, is I think the day of the scrum in the locker room is over with, because that's, players can get infected by one person in the media being sick and vice versa. So I think it's going to be, not Zoom calls, but because I think probably them being in the media room at a podium away from the media, and that may be the norm going forward. But that intimacy of surrounding a player and being able to throw questions at him might be in the past.
You mean we're not going to be in that claustrophobic setting where someone's doing an interview with Mike Eastwood and Mike Zeisberger walks through the camera?
Well, it's tough to walk through the camera now because
I'm thinking Maple Leaf Gardens, those tight little dressing rooms or locker rooms, whatever you call them.
Well, the visiting locker room at Scotiabank Arena isn't exactly the biggest in the world. And if you want to see a small locker room, you should see the one in Buffalo. The visitors locker room, they barely have enough space to put a pizza and some wings down. So it's
these thoughts though, they bring back comfort and with a future that is uncertain. We're still optimistic about it, but uncertain. Especially me recently with things that have happened in my life. There's a lot of reflection, right? A lot of looking back on things that have made you who you are. Coming through 2020, pretty difficult year, but we are here and we press forward. Corey Parrish and community, just looking forward to future podcasts. Norman, Mike, hopefully we're discussing Leafs games by mid-January. Stay safe, guys. Much support. Corey, thank you very much for your kind words of condolences on my Facebook page, too. I don't forget that kind of stuff. OG, convert. Arun Rajakumar, address the Nylander to the Flyers for a D-man trade rumor. We'll leave it at that, Mike. Go ahead and address that one because you know it's pressing and it's imminent.
Yeah. Well, it's something that my boss at Hockey Buzz, Eklund, has been reporting, and he has connections with the Flyers. But I spoke to somebody, and at this point, it really makes no sense. For one thing, it's the Flyers are shorthanded on defense after the retirement of Matt Niskanen, and the Leafs are not going to move Nylander this year. Because after moving Kapanen and Janssen, I think that the importance of having Nylander scoring on the wing with Matthews or Tavares is even more elevated. But at the end of the year, if their defense still is not improved to the level that they need, I think this is Nylander's last year in Toronto. So do I think it's a guarantee that he's traded to Philadelphia? No, but I do think he would be traded if he has a good year and they can get value for him. And they're going to need, money on the cap to re-sign guys like Zach Hyman, to re-sign Morgan Riley going forward, to maybe re-sign Freddie Anderson. So I think the management of their cap is going to make it a reality that Nylander of that core group is the most likely to be traded. But do I think it's an imminent trade that they're going to trade him for Travis Sanheim? No, I really don't.
What else do I want to hit on before we take off? OG's Converts, smash the subscribe button. Subscriptions to the podcast have gone way down. We're actually in the minus, and that makes sense. We haven't been producing too much content, going with the flow of what's happening in the hockey world right now. But we're going to be front and center with everything that takes place going forward. Hit the subscribe button. We're woefully short of where we should be. I know we do have a lot of people coming back. Most people who listen to the podcast aren't subscribed. I don't understand that, especially people who've been listening for years. You're doing us a favor. It doesn't cost you anything. If you can hit the subscribe button for us, that would make Mike and I feel a little bit more appreciated. And the last thing, Mike, when are they actually dropping a puck on this new season?
Based on everything that's been mentioned the last few days, I would think that we're safe to predict January 15th. In middle of January. It seems, when you hear Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun and Chris Johnston all say the same thing, I think it's pretty sure that they're right, and that's what it's going to be.
Absolutely, Mike. Hey, fun to get back on the podcast setting with you. Plenty more to come. For Mike, I'm Norm. OG's Converse. Thanks for the love. We're out.